Welcome back to That Rugby podcast, hosted by the Rugby Booth. It's your boy Luke, your boy Husey, back again. Look, the Rugby Booth Bowl has been decided for another year. My Hurricanes absolutely wiping the rugby field of your Waratahs. Look, I went in and I said last week that it was probably going to be one of the tightest games, and it was anything but. But Husey, first, I'm going to let you come up with all your excuses about why you guys lost, rather than how good the Hurricanes were.
I think the Hurricanes were definitely the better team. I said that they were going to claw their way back into the top six, and they needed to start this weekend. They did. Hurricanes look fantastic. Probably the best they've looked all year. Waratahs definitely off the pace. This game did not look like the Waratahs of previous weeks. There's a number of things you can point to there. I think one of the biggest ones, which probably won't get talked about, is a significant player loss. And now you're probably going to think I'm going to say, Jake Gordon, or I'm going to say Andrew Kellaway, or I'm going to say Lalakai Feketi. I'm going to say none of those three names. Even losing Max Jorgensen during the game, which I think was huge because of his defensive efforts that he's had during the year, thus forcing the shift of Joseph Soliti back to fullback where he hadn't been training through during the week. He's been injured. Not going to say any of those. The most significant loss, or the most significant player that was not on the field for the Waratahs this week, was Hugh Sinclair, because he's been the captain the last few weeks. He's kept the team together. They've taken the captaincy out of the forward pack, and when Jake Gordon's captain, he's at least that link between forwards and back, and they've put the captaincy into the centres in the hands of Joey Walton, who, similar to Sinclair, is a good Super Rugby player, but not a fantastic Super Rugby player. I don't think he offers anything special. At least with Sinclair, though, as a forward, you're kind of getting stuck in quite a bit into those messy situations. Not to say that Walton doesn't do that. Walton is a tough-nosed player, and that's hard to do with a nose his size. I think he would never really get broken. But I just don't think it was the same without Hugh Sinclair. I think having that leadership was clearly absent. The forwards looked out of sorts with a couple of exceptions. The backs, it didn't seem like there was much going on there either. Tane Edmed coming on the field for Lawson Crichton's injury, again, coming on earlier than where they'd been game planned to come on and things like that. I think a lot of disruptions, but you could point to all of that, and if you were to say to me, Husey, if the Waratahs were at full strength, they didn't have those injuries during the game, do you still think they'd beat the Hurricanes? I'd say maybe. I don't think it definitively changes the result. I think it makes it a lot tighter of a game for sure, but it's always hard to go over and play in New Zealand, as we've seen from the records that have been toppling this year when Australian teams are finally getting some success over in New Zealand. So no, I don't think it would change the result. The Hurricanes came out absolutely firing. I feel like the Hurricanes had a good talking to during the week, and they were told, hey, it's a long season, and there's a long road to get ourselves into the finals and get ourselves into a good position. It's going to start this week. And I think they responded. Ruben Love had one of the most ridiculous passes I've ever seen to set up a fantastic try. So, all credit to the Hurricanes. But yeah, I guess we're talking about the Max Jorgensen injury. It's a syndesmosis injury, out for 6 to 8 weeks, it looks like. And that is a tough blow for the Waratahs, because I think he's been their best player this year.
Yeah, I would agree. I'll start with my Hurricanes, and then I'll get on to good old Jorgensen. Look, that was the best we've played in a long time, and we needed it. Coming off the bye, I think, as you said, there was just a lot of things that clicked, and I think I was most impressed, obviously, with our defence. As you said, you were missing players, but you've got some, you've got players there that can do a job, and you haven't been scared about scoring points this season either. So I was impressed with that. And then again, when the Hurricanes are on, it's a fucking hard thing to stop. We play with that flair. You've got those Ruben Loves, so on and so forth. Riley Holhipper, oh my God, again, I was questioning our fly half position at the start of the season. I was like, we lost Brent Cameron, and he wasn't, in my mind, the greatest fly half. Harry Godfrey stepped in and done a good job. Riley Holhipper had his best game, I think, of his career. And I think it just looks good, and it helps having the best number 9 in the world. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it once. I'm going to say it 100 times. Cam Regard is the best number 9 in the world, and that helps our team again. But I will say it does feel a little less feels a little more hollow just due to, as you said, the player loss. But again, I think, as you said, on the day, we just showed up. It was one of those ones. I still, again, to go to Waratahs, I'd love to see what it'd be like if we went to Sydney and played a full strength team. And again, we've been missing players for the start of the season and we're starting to come healthy. It just happens for teams. But yeah, on Jorgensen, obviously a cheeky wee hip drop tackle. And I messaged you afterwards to kind of go a bit deeper into it. Never intentional. Again, in Union, you don't end up in those positions that often, but this is a big number 6. I think IOC was playing 6. And Jorgensen was getting away. He grabbed him, shirt kind of collar grabbed from behind and slid down to the ankles. Again, it's not a law in Union because it happens so little. There's not so much players tackling from behind, but it was one of those ones where this happens a couple more times. I think we'll start to see some comments made and some interest around that just because of the dangers and the fear that goes with it.
You have to protect the players. The players are the product at the end of the day. But let's talk about some other happier results on the weekend. Only 4 games played this week, but all of them great games, except for the Hurricanes Waratahs. Brumbies took on the Highlanders and won in Canberra. A tight game, that one, though, 34-27, with the Brumbies seeming to find their stride. The Highlanders once more seem to just be on the drawing the short straw and just seeming to come up short against these other teams. And I think they'll look back on a few of these results at the end of the season when they're not in the finals with some regrets. The Reds and the Force. Now, this was an incredible game. I don't know if you saw this one, but man, that was a heavyweight bout of 2 teams just socking each other in the face. Like, both of these teams going at it 100%. The battle between McWright and Tizano for the Wallaby 7 jersey was on full display in this game. And I think McWright is in danger of losing his position because Tizano has been phenomenal.
Someone posed this question, and I'll let you continue, but is this a potential Hooper Pocock situation where you try and start both of them? And again, you look at the way both of them are playing, and you go, "What do you think about that?"
Yeah, I mean, look, what that means is that then one of Harry Wilson or Bobby V rides the bench. You know, I would almost. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, it's such a blessing for the Wallabies to have such a strong back row, because if someone gets injured, you've got that ready replacement in there. I feel like what you can do then is you can have Tizano or McWright on the bench, and then during the game swap one of them in for the other, or for Bobby V, or potentially for Harry Wilson and Bobby V goes back to 8 in that scenario. Like, I think they could become one of your bench forwards. But yeah, you're right. It is giving those vibes of Hooper Pocock. And that's a great thing to have because those are 2 of the best back rows to ever play the game,
How old are they as well? Like, they're not that old, are they?
No, Tizano, they're both early 20s.
Yeah.
All right, Carlo Tizano is 25 and Fraser McWright is
26.
Exactly, there you go.
Yeah.
Prime.
So you know,
prime.
Yeah, you've got 5 to 6 to 7 more years of their prime. Like as a good number 6, 7. Like Hooper played all the way into 33. So again 2 very good players at the height, and I know Tizano out of nowhere has become a try scoring freak, and the most
10 tries.
Did you see that the most try scored by a forward in Super Rugby is 12. There's 2 of them. I think Marks has 1. Someone else scored 12. So Tizano, we're not long into the season, and he's
already got 10.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. He could quite easily, and that's not. We all know he tackles. We all know he can get a steal as well. He's adding this try scoring ability, and again, it may
he's
be
in the right position at the right time.
But yeah, he's putting himself in those positions in a good enough team now, where you go, shit. Look, as you said, McWright, as good as McWright was for the Wallabies last year, as good as McWright's probably been this year. That's how good Tizano is right now, and this is what you need.
Forcing the conversation.
Exactly, but not even that's competition. Like that, this is what Wallabies haven't had for so long, is to be able to go, shit, there's two world-class players at a position. That just doesn't happen. And again, we're starting to see more and more of it. So yeah, it's fantastic for you guys and fantastic for both of those teams as well. When you look at the force and you look at all three, four Australian teams, the sevens that they've got at the moment, you've got Charlie Campbell, Luke Raymer, and then those two. Those are some fucking good sevens going around. Paul Steele winning sevens. So good game there. And then the greatest game of all time.
Oh, yes.
One of the, Moana Pasifika has had our Hurricanes number for so long. I'm just glad they've started to tick off another New Zealand team's number.
Yeah.
And they went to Christchurch and put the most points in Canterbury since the year 2000. So in the century, the most points that the Crusaders have had put against them by Moana Pasifika. That's probably incredible. One of the greatest weekends for a Hurricanes fan. We beat the Waratahs. We saw the Crusaders lose to a Moana Pasifika. And Artie Savia led Moana Pasifika. We don't forget that. He was once a Hurricane. We didn't have to watch the Blues and their miserable fans play. And the Chiefs, who are riding high, also had a bye. So it was a great weekend for us. We didn't have to watch any other New Zealand Super Rugby team get any points.
You're the only New Zealand rugby team who won. Yeah, you're the only team in New Zealand who won this week. Yeah, I mean, it almost makes the Waratahs loss worth it, like just to see the Crusaders beaten in their own backyards like that. Absolutely fantastic. However, it is making me clench my butthole extra tight this week where we travel to Auckland to play Moana Pasifika now.
And that's what I said. I said Moana Pasifika, as I said last week, I think they're going to beat some teams. The Drua, when they host teams, are going to beat some teams, and that's going to ruin finals chances. It's going to ruin home final opportunities. And the more and more we look at it, again, those pesky Queensland Reds, they're hanging about. They're now top of the table. It's not easy to go to Brisbane. We all know that. It's a fucking scary place to go. So you start to really tick over with, hey, if they win this, they host a semi-final, they host a final. Shit, are we seeing a Super Rugby win for the Queensland Reds? And again, it's the same as if you guys can put yourself in that position, 1 to 2 to 3, and holding on to those positions, it's tough. It's not an easy place to win, and those Moana Pacific teams are just dead flying it.
The table's so tight at the moment. I mean, the difference between first place and fifth place is one win. Like the Waratahs are 4-2, the Reds and Chiefs are 5-1. Like it's that close at the moment. The Reds and Chiefs, though, obviously benefiting from bonus points, which the Waratahs aren't because they're not getting some of these huge, massive victories, and the losses they've had have been significant. So their points differential has also suffered for that. And I think that's probably a worrying sign for the Waratahs going forward, is that an inability to get back in games or inability to get back into a game and make it close. Both their losses have been by double digits. Both of those have been away from home, sure, but that's half your season is away from home. They've got to tighten up, and hopefully they start this week against Moana Pasifika. Huge top of the table clash though. Chiefs and the Reds. The Reds traveling to Waikato to face the Chiefs in Hamilton. That's going to be a big one. That's going to be the Reds showing if they've got the stuff to run in the big leagues. If they are a legitimate threat for a title this season. The Drua take on the Crusaders. This is in Fiji, I believe. It is in Suva, Fortress Suva, for Fiji. Your Canes take on the Blues in Eden Park. Best of luck to you. I'm honestly hoping for you guys to win. It's nice for all of us to rally against a team, or to two teams this season, and both of them being New Zealand teams in the Blues and the Crusaders. so it's nice. And then the Force take on the Highlanders in Perth. I mean, obviously we're going for the Force there. Let's keep the momentum rolling there for the Western Australian team, maintaining their position in the top 6. Although I think that means that I think you would overtake them, even if they've got the bonus points. It depends on bonus points. You guys might overtake them, but.
Yeah, they've got a game.
We'd rather the Force and the Force and the Highlanders. Yeah. Well, look, the Crusaders are going to lose to the Crusaders are going to lose to Fiji, so you'll get in that way. You'll get into the top 6 that way. The Crusaders get booted out of the top 6.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we just said. Yeah. Fiji is going to beat the Crusaders. You guys are going to beat the Blues, and the Force are going to beat the Highlanders. Therefore, the Crusaders get knocked out of the top 6, and you take their place. Easy. Everyone wins then. Everyone wins.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, look,
Yeah.
it's going to be another fascinating round of Super Rugby. Was obviously another very good round this week, even with the one less game. Again, I'm not a fan of buys, and we've talked about this heavily on the podcast, that they could have played 5 games. I don't know why they didn't, but player welfare, safety, rah,
I think
rah, rah.
it is 5 games this weekend. It's not another bye round.
No, the previous round that just went.
Oh, previous round. Sorry, yes,
That's
yes,
what
I'm with you now.
so,
I was like, we're not having another one straight away.
No. But yeah, my question is, why have one? Everyone gets a bye once a week. Like, it's not a long season. When you compare it to the seasons over in Europe, grow up, New Zealand rugby players and Australian rugby players. So look, again, Super Rugby going in a good direction. What we love to see. Now,
it's something to do with the British and Irish Lions, and needing to get a certain amount of games done, because the Wallabies have got a trial test, don't they?
Yeah, but surely you'd want to play more games then.
Play more games in Super Rugby?
No. As in, why would you have an extra bye? You know what I mean? Like, that would get the season done quicker if we just got all the games out of them.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
I don't understand why we have that extra
I would imagine
bye.
it's something to do. I would imagine that it's something to do with the broadcasting of needing to have a certain number of weeks of content.
Agreed, yeah, 100%. There'll be money involved. It'll be dollars and value and this and that, but it's stupid to me. But yes, onto what has been a hotly discussed topic now, and it's the Giteau law, but it's for the All Blacks that has come up, because Razor came out and spoke early last year that he was in favour of bringing players back from overseas. He's now kind of rescinded on that, primarily because New Zealand Rugby were like, we're not doing that. And so I think he was going against his employer, and they were like, well, we need to show a strong front. And so they jumped on a podcast and said, no, I'm actually not so keen on doing that anymore because I've seen the value of it. I'm like, I just don't think I think I got told
he had a
what
quiet
he could
word
do
whispered to him, yeah.
Yeah. And there's someone said in the article I was reading that they probably said you can choose who goes on sabbaticals from now on if that's the way to do it, but they won't be selecting from overseas. Richie Moana then did a interview where he was like, I want to play in the 2027 World Cup, but he's got a 3-year contract. And I go, look, things aren't adding up. Now, Damian McKenzie recently signed through to 2029, which is one of the biggest signings, I think, that we've made. With the form he is in currently, you look at Beauden Barrett, currently 34. He's only 30. Damian McKenzie, again, in 2029, he'll be about 34, where we see Beauden Barrett. I go, look, I'm not too bothered. I've always said I think there'll come a time and a place where New Zealand will select players from overseas. I don't think we're close to it yet. I don't think, like, we're talking about Richie Moana, a 0 times World Cup winner. And again, I'm not blaming him for us not winning the World Cup, but he's no Dan Carter. You know what I mean? Like, he hasn't won us a World Cup with a strong team. As good as he is, and he may be the best 10 New Zealand has currently, the talent we still have with Beauden Barrett and Damian McKenzie doesn't have me worried going into the next World Cup. Can Damian McKenzie do it? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% around it, but I would rather see that than select an overseas-based player in Richie Moana, who also may not be able to do it. Like, I'm not sure in what Richie. I don't know what his talent. We know that the Japanese game is a slightly softer game, as in defense isn't as stringent. There isn't as many big hits. How does his body hold up when you select him back from that? All of those things we've got to factor into the equation. So I am not certain that Richie Moana could come back and do a job. What I am seeing from Damian McKenzie is good enough rugby to go, he can do a job. Will he get the job done again in 2027? There's a lot more questions that need to be answered between then and now. But I just go, I don't see it until it's a world beater. There isn't a player, I think, that is bigger than the All Blacks jersey at the moment. And we didn't have the skill issues and talent issues that you guys were facing with allowing players to go overseas. And when some of your best players, like legitimate world-class players, you look at the Will Skeltons, who are absolutely killing it. And when you look at French rugby versus Japanese rugby, again, French rugby, it's the world's toughest league. There's no doubt about it. So I go, there's different arguments to be made there, but to me, there's no player yet in the All Blacks that has made me go, we need to select overseas-based players. Going back to your Australians, I still agree that local talent should be selected for those mid-year tests, but when it comes to these big series, rugby championships, end of year tours, when you're going over there, you definitely should be selecting players overseas. And I've got, there's so much talent coming back to Australian shores as well. You look at someone like Harry Potter, who went over to England. You look at Nick White, you look at Dave Parecki, all those guys went over there and came back as better players. It's not a bad thing to be discussing with those players. I'm interested in your thoughts in, like, do you think they loosen the Giteau law? And when I say loosen it, not by like the amount of players, but at the moment, what is it, like 60 caps or 5 years or whatever it is, the rules around it. Whereas, say a young talented, say Suoli'i was to sign for a Japanese-based team. You know, is there a question there, like, say he hasn't hit those numbers, but you still want him playing for the Wallabies quite clearly? Is that something that you would go for or buy into?
Yeah, I think, look, Schmidt, and if he's going to continue to be involved as like a director of coaching or director of rugby role, his influence and preference is for local talent, like those who play in front of the local teams, Super Rugby competitions. Week in and week out, I guess other Australian teams and New Zealand teams as well as Pacific nations. Personally, I would be a favourite. I don't think Rugby Australia will change it because they've seen this resurgence of Super Rugby this year and this revitalization of the Super Rugby talent by condensing down to 4 teams. I don't think they want to undo those benefits by then sort of loosening the restrictions and letting players more easily go overseas. I was a big skeptic of shaving down a team, and but we've seen clearly the benefits of it already. And those benefits are leading to increased viewership. So and that's ultimately the most important metric because that's what gets dollars in the bank accounts. So yeah, I wouldn't mind if they loosen the restrictions because I'm very much a player centric sort of thinker rather than a league centric sort of thinker. But and so the players should have the ability to do what they'd like. But at the same time, I could definitely see the other side of the argument, and I even think there's positive qualities to it for keeping the restrictions tight. I wouldn't, it might be something where it's on the cards a few years down the track when there's been some more investment in local talent development and things like that, and we're seeing a bigger uptick in the grassroots level of rugby and things like that, and some of the numbers start to return. Then maybe it opens up a bit. As it stands, rugby in Australia is on a bit of a, it's at a bit of a tipping point, and it's starting to tip in a positive direction. You don't want to blow it back the other way.
Totally. And I'm thinking here of, like, let's say you go to a Nathan Cleary, you go, hey, look, we can't pray you away from league. You obviously like league, but what if that French money could? And all we have to do, we don't have to pay him as this massive contract, but we could select him for Australian rugby. And it opens up that door to be like, hey, you can play for the Wallabies and earn millions in rugby union. And a few of those league players, again, the issue you have, you got 17, 16 Australian rugby league teams in Australia. So you go, there's 16 teams versus 4 professional teams in union. The squad size, obviously, everything like that. Do you think a couple of leagueies would not be, wouldn't surprise me, go, hey, there's an opportunity overseas and I can put on a Wallabies jumper. I'll take that.
Yeah, there is that as well, but that's no definite thing. Like, I think that relies on a bit of luck and a bit of look, I don't mean to sound derogatory here, but a bit of advanced thinking from league players, which they're not exactly known for, and I say this as a rugby league fan as well. And look, to be honest, the areas of talent where Australia needs help is fly half and lock, right? You're not going to get out of league too many locks. There's not too many quality second rowers floating around in rugby league. Fly half maybe, but then essentially you're changing the rules for one player, right? And you pretty much targeting Nathan Cleary with that. That's pretty much it. So I don't know if the benefit would outweigh the risk there. I think that the better object would be trying to get some of these league players into Super Rugby, because that then is going to draw more eyes to local competition, because people, see their familiar names playing for a different team, and they're more likely to tune in and watch. There's the value behind that name recognition. We've seen it with just Suoli, right? Literally just that one guy has brought in a lot of viewers because people recognize his name from the NRL side of things. They're not switching allegiances. It's possible to watch more than one sport these days, with streaming services and stuff. I quite often do it on a Friday or a Saturday. I have, Stan Sport on one screen, KO on the other, to watch both codes. So, yeah, I think the object, and I think that's the reason why Suoli was brought into the Waratahs, because one he's local. It's going to get people going along to the games in Sydney, which is the most important market for Rugby Australia. So, it's again, I don't think the risk reward ratio is on the good side of the scales there, because imagine, say for example, you do open that up and then you lose Tizano and McWright overseas, and that immediately takes away a lot of quality talent from the Super Rugby AU talent pool that we're seeing week in and week out, and it makes it for much, much less exciting Super Rugby product.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Talk about European rugby. I was reading this today. Saracens are resting their players for a Champions Cup game against Toulon. Now, this has been a hot topic because they're doing it to focus on the Premiership. They've got to rest some of their England players that are likely to be selected for Lions as well. You look at Mario Toje. So they've decided to rest them in a Champions Cup round of 16 game. Now, this is to me has always been an issue, and South Africans teams did it as well. And it's not, again, not me pitching it at South African teams or anyone jive there, but they did it because they were focusing on URC. They've got a whole lot of rugby. It's a big travel schedule to go all around Europe and then play some home games and stuff like that. So Saracens have done the same thing. The issue is with European rugby right now, and they've got to get a grip on this, is the Champions Cup should be the biggest tournament there is in European rugby. It's competing against the Champions League. And it's quite clearly not. Like, I totally understand resting players, and they've got a busy schedule over here and it's a long seasons, but there's got to be a right way of doing it. And to me, this isn't the right way of doing it. Again, it opens up some of those conversations. I know we've discussed like Asian Champions Cup type tournaments between Japan League and so on with Super Rugby, but we also don't want this happening where in the end it's just too many games and players have been rested and we're doing games for the sake of games or expansion for the sake of expansion. So I just thought that was a little note to put on European rugby again. We know French rugby's at its height, English rugby's struggling a little bit, but teams are still preferring those Premiership and their main competitions over European competitions. Last thing for today, I was having a thought, and I was as I was on my 7th beer of the night on Saturday after winning our competition for the year, a rugby championship. I thought, on a night out, who are some good rugby players, past or present, that you would like to have? And again, I saw Ma'anonu recently at the age of 42 play again for the French in the French top league, and you go, on a night out, that's a good bloke to have by you. Twice the size of everyone else. Also, seems like it'd be a great time and can last a while. You can tell he can last a while because he can keep playing rugby until he's 42 at a high level. So I'm like, that one jumped to mind at me. I had a couple others. Hughesy, on a night out, who are you kind of thinking about selecting as a partner in crime?
I've got 3 that I think would be really fun. Okay. 2 of them are South African. And that's Sia Khaleesi and Eben Etzbeth. But not only just for their size, but seeing some of their videos while they're in France for the World Cup, those guys are some funny guys. They look like they can have a good time, and cracks of jokes at all. But also, interact with people in a fun and kind manner. And then my third one, I reckon Nick White would be hilarious on a night out, and he would get you in so much strife that it would be necessary to have both Sia Khaleesi and even Elspeth with you there, because otherwise you might be in some trouble. But I reckon Nick White would be the type of guy to keep the fun going, stir some shit up, come up with some fun drinking games, things like that.
Yeah, I love that one. I was thinking in the same manner, like you probably want a couple of scary blokes there. You probably do. So I was like, you know what? I'll get the scariest looking bloke. And again, a South African. It doesn't surprise you that it's a South African. Bucky's Bofa on a night out. No one's fucking messing with you. He is 100% angry 100% of the time, if you know what I mean. So I go, there's one. If I want another angry looking man, I'm going Sebastian Chabal. Like, again, looks like he'd kill you just by looking at you. So I'm like, cool, I've got my 2 protection. Now I want to have a good time. So I've gone Joe Marler, obviously, fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Exactly. I'm sure he would love a pint. And then I'm thinking, I need to end up in some trouble as well. You know, as you do, you want to end up 3 a.m. causing some strife. Danny Cipriani comes off as me as a troublemaker. I was going down over him, you know, pre being locked up, Sonny Bill Williams, and when I mean locked up in marriage, pre that, Sonny Bill Williams was a great time. Yeah. Everyone knows the stories about a so-called cricket player's wife, whatever. So Sonny Bill would have been a great time, but I kind of went away because, again, I thought as well, I reckon Dave Pocock would be a great time. And again, I know he's gone into the politician route, but he'd have some fucking stories, let's not lie. And when he's on, I reckon he would be on. And then lastly, Finn Russell. If I was going to, like, you probably want someone
Scotsman.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a Scotsman who's going to take it, have a good time. Keith Wood was another one that popped up. I don't know, a throwback to those who know, I think would be awesome. And then I was like, actually, what if I switched this all around? And I said, I don't need to choose, you know, any players. I just need one family. Give me the
Tuolagi family
with Manu, with all of them. That what they would have the biggest nights out. There's no doubt about it. And they would be crazy. They'd probably fight each other. They'd fight everyone else around them. And I just get to sit and watch it. And it's like I'm paying for a pay-per-view. UFC 319, the Tuolagi family goes out on a night out with Luke Bowden. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, I'd love to hear, again, from our listeners and our viewers, what some of the players they'd love to take a night out with in the rugby past or present, because I just thought, you know what, you know, some of these players would be a bloody good time. But that is it for us today. Again, the Rugby Bowl stays with my Hurricanes. I think that's the 3rd straight year or 4th straight year since we've been doing this. I don't think we've lost it in a while, actually. So, again, one day you'll get your hand on the bowl, but for now it stays in my country. Good luck against Moana, Pasifika. As we know, they will be a challenge. For now, thank you for joining us. I've been Luke. It has been Husey. Goodbye.
Peace.